Have you ever wondered what the very first cruise ship was? What was it like for passengers on board that ship? Let's find out. Ahoy, travelers! It's Amy with Cruising from the Ozarks here to give you a glimpse into the history of cruising. People have sailed the seven seas for centuries, but the idea to build a ship solely for luxurious sea travel didn't come around until the late 19th century. The son of a Jewish-Danish immigrant, Albert Ballin took over his father's immigration agency in 1874 and turned it into an independent shipping line. He eventually caught the eye of Hapag executives who made him their general director in 1899 and put him in the position to make history. Hapag, or the Hamburg American Line as it's often referred to, was the world's largest shipping company at that time. And Ballin was hired to not just maintain that title, but to push them into the future. And boy did he. He began by retrofitting cargo ships into barely passable cruise ships. While he did garner some success, not everyone believed that cruise ships were a good move for the company. This was Germany after all. Surely Germans weren't going to travel for any reason but that of necessity. One of his colleagues said that the Germans would, quote, surely not submit themselves to the hazards and discomforts of a long voyage just for the incidental fun of it. Ballin obviously believed otherwise. While Ballin had the business sense to realize that cruising to the Caribbean during the winter months would be a draw for tourists as well as a profit for the company, he soon realized that using converted cargo ships had some downsides. Passengers had to deal with unsightly machinery, restrictive deck space, a lack of onboard amenities, and austere sleeping accommodations, none of which were what first-class passengers were used to. Also at the time, popular Caribbean ports were not developed enough for such large ships. All this meant that converted cargo ships were a temporary measure and something would need to be done. One of the first things Ballin did when he rose to the level of general director was to commission the first purpose-built cruise ship the world had ever known, the Prinzessin Victoria Luise. He hired the shipbuilders Blom and Voss to construct a vessel specifically designed to match his vision of luxurious travel. Before we discuss what this very first cruise ship was like, if you enjoy the video and maybe even learn something, consider subscribing with the notification bell on so you don't miss any future posts. Be sure to hit that like button as well. It only takes a second, and doing so helps cruisers like you find us. The Prinzessin Victoria Luise was a 407-foot, 4,419-ton vessel with twin screw engines that could cut through the water at a speed of 16 knots, which is about 19 miles an hour. Named by Ballin after the German emperor's only daughter, the Victoria Luise boasted a large gym, social hall, library, smoking room, a large art gallery surrounding the dining room, wide promenade decks, a ballroom for dancing, and even a dark room for amateur photographers. Seems like art has been a thing since the very beginning. I wonder if they were selling the art back then. In addition to entertainment provided by musicians, passengers expected decadent cuisine, which was not an easy feat over 100 years ago. The Victoria Luise provided 120 spacious first-class only staterooms, each equipped with elegant European furnishings, brass beds, and double light portholes that could be opened when the ship was in warm climates. There were no accommodations for lower classes, but the ship was designed for luxury travel and those who could afford to do so. After launching from Hamburg on June 29, 1900, the Victoria Luise's first cruise lasted 35 days and explored ports in the West Indies and Venezuela. The ship would sail to Norway and the Baltics in the summer and the Mediterranean and Caribbean in the winter. Over the years, it docked in ports in New York, France, England, Ireland, Scotland, the North Cape in Norway, and St. Petersburg. And every port had a well-planned shore excursion. In February of 1901, Scientific America highlighted that the vessel was designed for a class of service which hitherto has been performed by the regular ships of this company, the first vessel of her kind to be built purely for yachting, pleasure cruising, purposes. It was deemed to be the first purpose-built ship, non-private excursion ship, what we call cruise ships today. While the super rich had their own yachts, the Victoria Luise brought cruising to those who could not afford the expense of owning their own yacht. Ballin knew he needed to market to a wealthy clientele in order to make the venture a success. To that end, he requested that the engineering journals refer to the Victoria Luise as a cruising yacht. Unfortunately, despite all the planning and effort, the lifespan of the Victoria Luise was short-lived. While on a Caribbean cruise in December of 1906, it crashed against an uncharted ridge off the coast of Jamaica. The captain had attempted to enter the harbor without aid and had mistaken which lighthouse he was using as a guide. It didn't help that a recent volcanic eruption had changed the shape of the seabed off Jamaica, making the charts the captain used unreliable. While no one was injured when the ship ran aground, after the evacuation, the captain went into his cabin and ended his life. While the world of leisure cruising slowed during World War I and the Depression, it would eventually gain momentum after World War II. Today, we can look back and say that modern-day cruising owes a large debt to the vision of Albert Ballin. I hope you enjoyed this foray into the history of cruising. Why not stick around and check out this video and then come back for more information designed to help you have an amazing cruise. Have a blessed week, everyone.